Hello there, welcome back. It's the Joy Book Club again. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and on this show we bring books to life. Yes, we give them life. You see them like this, but there's a whole world in there. And today we're going to serve you another installment of a different book. Last week we brought you that review of Ruthless by Crystal Zarapia. But today we're bringing you another installment, and it's a different book. There are going to be 5 sequels of this book, but this is the first one, The Usurper's Dream. Think about it. The Usurper's Dream by Yeayi Kobina. And this is book 1 of A Weaving of the First Gods. That's the book we're reviewing today. Let me quickly bring in my guests, let you know who they are before I give you my literary fun fact for today. In the red corner. It's like a boxing match. Maybe it's from the spillover of watching, I don't want to mention names, but I was watching some boxing yesterday. There is Marjorie O'Day, who is another old dog as far as book review is concerned, that we have on the show. Marjorie, thanks for coming.
Thank you, Ben.
There's also Kwame Nduvlo, who's also another old face, pretty in there. You've joined us for a few reviews in the past. Kwame, thanks for coming.
Thank you. Good to be here today.
All right. So right before I let you tell all of us about yourselves, I have 2 fun facts for you today by way of my literary fun fact. 1, did you know only around 2% of more than 1.2 million books published each year sell more than 500,000 copies? 1.5 million books, approximately, every year. Only about 2% sell over 500,000 copies. So that means if we read more books would sell more, right? So that's why we're encouraging you. Who knows? We can let this book and other books sell more than 500,000 copies, and then we'll move out of the 2% bracket. And since today we're going to be talking about Asante or Ashanti culture and the golden stool and everything in between, Anokye, which is woven into fiction, I thought I'd share this with you as well. The Asante have a lot in common with Jamaicans, including linguistic and cultural similarities owing to the slave trade that saw many Ghanaians taken to Jamaica and Barbados. Now, guess what? The Jamaican flag is also said to have been inspired by the Asante King's Kente. Yeah, so if you look at the Jamaican flag, the green, the black, the yellow in there, apparently it was inspired by Kente. Yeah, if you didn't know, now you know. Let's come back into the studio. Marjorie and Kwame are here. Marjorie, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Marjorie O'Day?
Okay, so Marjorie is just, I'm a lover of books, a lover of politics, fun lover, dancing lover.
Oh.
Yes, so I'm here for the show so that we can review this and educate her.
Okay, she's an educator. She's shying away from that. She's an educator as well. And you mentioned dancing. I'm looking at your feet now because I have 2 left feet. So you are on your own in that regard. Kwame, who are you?
Kwame is an educator as well. I love books. I don't like music. I don't like dancing, but I love listening to music. Okay. And watch people dance. So maybe I'm watching.
We share that,
of course.
So we can maybe after the show we can play some music and she will dance and we'll observe. And
do you agree to that?
Well, we'll see.
Deal?
Deal.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So let's get into this book, The Usurper's Dream. Wonderful book, artistically put together, woven together, right?
Yep.
Yes.
But what would be your general appreciation of this book? Let me start with you, Kwame. How did you find the book?
I find it very interesting, intriguing, because a lot of things hidden in there, especially magic.
Okay.
Magic, in one of the most powerful books of the Bible, we saw that Moses split the ocean into 2. Here too, there's something similar. Someone splitting mountains into 2. That's great.
Okay.
That's great.
But in one sense, they'll tell you that, I mean, that's God, and this is magic. Anokye comes in.
How they made us to believe, but of course, I think the same power, kind of similar powers that have been used in this case.
Okay. So he was enthralled by the magic. That's him. What did you find exciting about this book?
Okay, so you know the story of how Ashanti Kingdom came into existence to become one of the most powerful empires in the world. It's a story that I know in bits and pieces. But you know, with every story in history, there are some gaps that maybe your great-grandma is not around to fill. So I think this book has tried to use, the author has tried to use his own imagination to educate us and to keep us entranced by the story. And I'm really enjoying it. I enjoyed it so much.
Right.
Yeah.
And what an imaginative, piece that is. But let's talk about characters. There's Asantwa, there's Intim Jakari, there's Tutu, Tutu, if you it would be pronounced. There's who else? There's Anokye.
Anokye is
Ofomfo.
Anokye.
Powerful guy.
White hair.
Intim Jakari.
All of those are in this story. There are the women who are the oracle, and all of that.
Other interesting people, Breman, one of the key people in this book.
Exactly.
We'll get to know why.
Mana Kotosi, very interesting.
Who is your favorite character?
Mana Kotosi.
Why? Okay, who is this person and why?
Actually, she's the mother of Tutu, according to the book, and she's she's the head of espionage. Very wise, chief spy, wise. Wily, cunning, ready to do whatever it takes to get power, It is interesting. She's one of my best characters in this book. Of course, we shouldn't forget Bracco, another guy who, very interesting character, of course, because he's wealthy and he made money out of selling secret to people. So, yeah.
Okay, imagine that, making money out of other people's secrets.
Marjorie,
your favorite character?
It's not fair that my favorite character is your favorite.
Is his favorite character?
Yes.
Okay.
But
you are free to choose another character.
Yes, but then I will talk about Breman.
Okay.
Because she gives you, this is a girl who has been sold out as a slave into a new home
environment,
and she's reduced to nothing, because it's as if every man who finds her attractive can have a piece of her. But then she still has a dream to become queen mother. When she met the man who could tell the fates and asked her what fate does she want, she said she wanted to die a queen. And for someone who is like a slave, she wasn't just a maiden at the palace, but she was like a slave to have risen through the ranks. She
had a big dream. Huh?
She has a big dream. She had a big dream, and she lived to see it happen.
Okay, so let's quickly do this, something that actually skipped me, which I should have done earlier. What is the book about? We have the blurb and a bit about the author very briefly. I'll share that among you, so you'll take the blurb for us, Marjorie.
Okay, so The Usurper's Dream is a thrilling reimagining of the formation of the Ashanti Empire. It weaves historic events with the African belief system of gods and magic to tell the tale of Tutu and Okomfo Anokye, his chief oracle, as they face mighty forces, both mortal and mythical, to create one of the most celebrated empires in modern African history.
All right, thank you. A bit about the author.
The author, Yeayi Kobina, is a Ghanaian novelist. The Usurper's Dream is his debut work as an author. Before embarking on a career as a novelist, Yeayi worked as a journalist and script writer.
So we've looked at characters. Let's quickly, and in case you're just joining us, we're reviewing today The Usurper's Dream by Yeayi Kobina. It's book one, the first, a weaving of the first gods. That's what we're looking at. There's a sequel to this that is actually out, and who knows, we just might review that on the show too. This is the Joy Book Club. But let me come to you. Themes, one or two, very quickly. I'll start with you this time, Marjorie.
Okay, so with themes, you can look at hope.
Okay.
We see a lot of hope throughout the story. We see Mana Kotoshi having the hope that her son is going to become the king of Kwaman one day. We see the hope in Breman. Everybody seems to have some kind of hope that they are not going to let go in spite of what challenges that they are faced with. And we can also talk about politics. You can see how politics
in what?
Politics in what they won't stop at anything. And that's when how Bracco comes in. We see how he's of a low estate. He was born, he's the 14th child of his parents. there's a part where the author talks about how his clothes, he was displeased with his life because the clothes that were handed down to him at childbirth had been worn by 13 older siblings before it got to him, and he wasn't happy. But we see that he was able to go through a system of politicking, tricking people, bribing, selling secrets. Like he
finds a way.
Yeah, okay. Blackmailing and all that to get himself to become one of the king's closest members in the council.
I like the way you've put it. You've made it very apt. Let's get to your themes.
I think she mentioned almost all of them, but let me add, megalomania, power, that desire to get power, to rule over people. I think is in there. We can see that even from the main character, protagonist, Osei Tutu, trying to, at all costs, becoming a king and all that. We have that in there. Then espionage, I mentioned that earlier today, selling people's secret, Bremain, Manakotosi, using that to easily outwit the ruthless king, Tim Jakari in this. So these are some of the things. We shouldn't forget war. There's a lot of war in this book as well. So.
Oh yes, and even as we talk about war, love too.
Love, yes.
Love
brewing in
the bush.
In the bush.
How about love? Some good old love.
Yeah, of course, love in this
There's
book.
love in there.
We shouldn't. We have to talk about this one love between Ejewa and Osei Tutu in the bush, and of course between Nyamiche, the spirit, and Prince Akoto. So we shouldn't forget that. Love is something we need to talk about in this book as well.
So we're going to go very quickly. It's time flies when you're having fun.
When
you're reading. But we'll start with the prologue. You can't start this without going through the prologue. So here's how it starts. Asantewa's cries, and I'll go very quickly and maybe split it up at some point. Asantewa's cries pierced through the still night. In the hut, the oracles of Asasiya, the goddess of the earth and fertility, huddled around her to welcome the birth of a baby girl as it had been since the dawn of time. The line of priestesses would remain unbroken. She could hear the reverberating sounds of incantations and prayers of her fellow sisters who were gathered outside the birthing hut. The mistress of the order bent over the expectant mother and encouraged her with soothing words. The mother-to-be lay stark naked with her legs and arms spread apart and held tightly by her fellow sisters. In a corner, some initiates dug out a small hole in the ground into which they lined dried branches and twigs before lighting a fire. As the fire roared to life, Nana, the most gifted soothsayer of the women, threw some dried chicken bones into the fire and prepared herself to tell the fortune of the new arrival. The crackling sounds of the bones filled the room. At the sound of the last crack, the youngest of the priestesses shut her eyes and sent her bare hands into the open flame. Nana began to mutter incoherently. The smoke rose, slowly forming out a shape. Asantewa fell back. She was exhausted. Her breathing was slow, and she did so with a lot of pain. Her face was drained of expression. Let me skip to the portion on the next page. Come on, the mistress yelled. You are a daughter of Asasiya. Do your duty. She held Asantewa's hand, gently caressing it till she got to her shoulder. The younger sister looked at the mistress in the eye, silently pleading to be let go. The mistress shook her head in response. An oracle of Asasiya does not give up during childbirth. You serve the goddess of the earth. Find your strength in her. But then, as the story proceeds, the baby is born, and Nana was, however, thrown off by the image of a shape of a skull formed by the smoke. The smoke sucked itself in before assuming the shape of a knife. And it goes on, and they give birth. First of all, she gives birth to a boy, which is, the oracles are all female, and they give birth to females who continue in the line. But she's given birth to a boy, and not just any boy, a white-haired boy, white tufts of hair all over.
Yeah.
To make matters worse, this boy is giggling.
Yes, he was born and he wasn't crying. And when they gave him a shake, he started to giggle as if it was child's play. And not to forget that when his mother was pregnant, she displayed certain magic that otherwise she did not have before the pregnancy. So it gives us the hint that this is actually going to be a special baby. Yes.
What else do we gather from here? Because on page 11, there's also that saying, you know, each time a baby was born, there would be, the oracle would say something about the baby. What does the oracle say about this baby? And how does it feed into the line? There must be chaos for a new nation to be born.
When the baby was born at the beginning, they thought that the baby is going to bring a lot of trouble, a lot of chaos, wars everywhere. People were going to die. So they even wanted to kill the baby at the beginning, that this baby must not live. A boy, being born here, that doesn't happen. We need to kill him. But at the end of the day, when they looked at the smoke again, that smoke that became kind of a knife along the line, a lot of magic.
A skull and then a knife.
A lot of magic, not magic, a lot of power. And they got to know that, look, this baby has something special. He's not going to rather cause war, but it's going to be the source of forming a new kingdom. And and we can see that on page 11. I don't want to read that part of
Go ahead.
That there must be chaos, right? And for a new nation to bloom. So there will be chaos, all right. I am not really sure, mistress, but it seems the survival of all things depend on this baby. Nana was confused as she spoke. So there'll be chaos, but at the end of the day, everything gonna be all right because of this baby.
Because of the same
we got to keep him.
So initially he seemed to be a bad omen, but then an omen that will bring good tidings.
Source of hope.
In the end.
Better future.
Then we get into chapter 1, and it starts with a scene of someone with white braided hair, reminding, and of course glistening in the sun and all of that. What happens in this first chapter? Because there's someone acting all weird, a white-haired dude walking around like Charlie, he owns the place.
Yes, so Tutu is in the marketplace, going to have a meeting with emissaries from Akwemu, and he spots this white-haired boy about his age who seems impatient, like he's waiting for somebody or for something to happen. Then suddenly, as he's waiting to have his meeting, he notices that Anokye, as we find out he's called, there's an incident that happens. There's a slave who is escaping from his masters, and he's running, and there are 2 pursuers after him. And he stops the slave in his tracks, sits in front of him, draws 2 stick images in the sand, and then he raises the image that we all come to understand to be the slave who is running from the 2 pursuers who are the other stick images. And then they just run past him. So he doesn't see them, they are invisible. And then there we get to know that, okay, he actually saved the man the young man we get to know as Nancy later. He saved his life, and we see how their relationship builds up from there.
It builds up from there.
Yes, and we see how Tutu misses out on that action because he is distracted by the emissaries who come to meet him in that chapter.
Right. So the slave and Anokye. But when you turn to page 16, just a bit there, then some emissaries go to whom. And this is what happens. Tutu laughs and obliged his question. So maybe I should just start from the question. Is it wise to meet out here in the open, especially considering what we have to discuss, the second quest? He lowered his eyes upon realizing how rude his question might have sounded. I only ask due to the several ears and eyes surrounding us, he quickly added. Tutu laughed and obliged his question. To hide a thing in secret, one must place it in plain sight. And they say that is the way of the royals. But what secret is brewing, and what is this that agitates Ntim Jakari?
Of course. So Ntim Jakari is that ruthless king from the kingdom known as Dentra. The Dentra is right. So that kingdom is oppressing the other kingdoms in place. So the other kingdoms are planning to now attack because they're tired of Ntim Jakari with his actions. So those emissaries coming from Kwamai, they came to Kwamai to let them know that
they came from Akwemu
to Kwamai to let the prince also to know that, look, I think that it's time for us to begin to work together to prepare. and take on that ruthless king who is oppressing us.
And there's also Tibu and the threat that is meant to be carried out. Marjorie, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Okay, so Tibu is the assassin, right?
Yeah,
he is.
Yes, so after Intim Jakari finds out that Osei Tutu is actually planning a coup, if I should put it that way, he sends an assassin to go after him. That was his uncle, through his uncle. His uncle was not happy to learn that this is what his nephew is trying to do, trying to usurp the throne. Yes, so he sends an assassin to go after him, and we learn how things unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, of course, when they came, they thought no one saw them in the market square, but as I said, espionage, a lot of that is this book. People saw them, they went to tell the king, and the king was very angry. I think I should read something that the king said, supposedly. His reaction, when he heard that. Intim Jakari suddenly broke out in laughter. He bent over once again, coughing in between fistful of laughter. That's on page 21. I will wreck both kingdoms, every living being, from the greatest man to the lowliest dog. I will distinguish them from existence. Intim Jakari spat out after catching his breath. So he's very angry about that, and he's planning to finish them. So one of the things that he did was to send that table to go and kill the prince of Kwamu, that is Prince Akoto.
So the Prince of Kwaman, and is it Akwamu rather?
Akwamu, yeah.
I think it's Kwaman, is it not?
No, Kwamu, that's Prince Akoto. That's
what
yes, you're right. But the point is, the same prince, he has some gall, doesn't he? Because he did something that shouldn't have been done. He had Intim Jakari's sister.
That was Osei Tutu, right?
That was Osei Tutu, right?
Osei Tutu had to go. When they captured Kwaman, when Denchira captured Kwaman, they took, every time they capture a kingdom, they take the royals to serve as slaves in their palace. And when he got there, he ended up bedding the king's sister and impregnating her.
and so the interesting thing is the child she bore was now going to be next in line for the throne.
Exactly, because the king had not been able to bear any seed.
But he did eventually have seed by his not so favored
wife.
But one died. The other one was going to die, and then there was some intervention because it was seen to be a spiritual affliction or something. But interestingly, after that, all his children were female.
Yes, because his sister actually used dark magic to afflict his children. So he lost one.
Yep.
And it was left with the other who was very sick. So he found out that his sister was behind it. So he ended up killing the child that was fathered by Osei Tutu and his sister as well.
I want you to read from page 40.
Okay.
And we'll take it from there because something interesting happens. The oracle. And Nouvelo is very interested in magic. So let's read from page 40, Marjorie.
Page 40, which paragraph? From the beginning?
From the start, from the top.
In here, it was cloudy and empty. A putrid smell filled up the place. It took a minute for her eyes to adjust and to ignore the smell that threatened to weaken her approach. She found him hurled in a corner, a frail skeleton of a boy. "Efriye," she called out. The boy looked up weakly. "Have you come to take me home?" "I'm tired," he said. "It isn't your time yet." She reached out to him. Everything froze suddenly. The air suddenly seemed full. She knew what was coming. She had expected it from the very beginning. He appeared behind the boy. He was beautiful. His appearance was welcoming. This was death. "He is mine, young oracle," he smiled. Nyamiche felt so much peace as she looked at him, but she knew giving into it will mean her own soul departing from her own body. Coldness began to fill her body. You take with you the only means of survival of this house. A young wife widowed, a family line ended. Nyamiche shivered. She would have given anything to rub her shoulders and keep warm, but this was not the time to show weakness.
Okay, so we can end there. What is happening? Because there's a battle, death, I've read something about death speaks, and death is literally in a battle. What is happening?
Okay.
Yeah, so after years, that son of the woman and also has a wife, and is very sick. And according to the book, the sickness is not a natural sickness. Someone has inflicted him that sickness. So luckily, Nyamiche has gone there and is about to catch the death and kill the death.
Okay.
And what happens? You can't kill them.
Okay, so I want to say that just to help the story. So after Osei Tutu met the emissaries from Akwemu, and they departed, and we know Timbu was following them, the assassin, to kill them. Then they met with Nyamiche, who decided to help them and carry them on through the journey, killed the assassin by turning him into a plant. And they got to a town where they decided to rest. But that house had a need. The man of the house had been cursed by his supposed uncle, and he was lying there getting rotten. So after they had received hospitality from the dying man's mother and wife, Nyamiche, the oracle, decided to help them. So that was when, through the dark magic, she goes into him and then finds him hiding in the corner, has that encounter with death, and then brought him back to life somehow. So
she goes into him and actually fights death. This reminds me of something out of, is it Disney? Puss in Boots and the wolf that cries out, "I am death." Imagine seeing death face to face. I mean, what would you say? The Grim Reaper comes for you. What are you going to say?
Seeing death, I can only beg, right? Please. Don't take me yet.
Bro, we'll be sure. That's going to be an interesting one. We're still reviewing The Usurper's Dream by Yeayi Kobina. In about some 2 minutes, we'll take a break. But let's quickly look at chapter 13. Something interesting is happening there. Some trouble is brewing as far as Obri Yeboah, the Kwaman court, or Tutu are concerned. What is happening from here? Page 83 and 84. The advisors of Kwaman court were gathered in the stoolroom. Obri Yeboah watched each of them cautiously. He knew he had little support here. Ababrese was at the other end of the room, and without showing it, he took them all in as they spoke among themselves. 2 of his soldiers stood behind him. Our ancestors laid down this tradition. We have followed it for years. We cannot change it. The gods will not stand for it. Komi.
Yeah, so that's it. And so Ababrese is coming from the ruthless, kingdom that is the Dentrez, and is coming to talk to this guy, the Obri Yeboah, who is the king of Kwamai, right? So right from the beginning, when they saw them in the market, they went to tell the king, and the king wanted to now begin to go back and take Osei Tutu as slave, castrated slave. And that's why they came. So they came.
It's good to add that. A castrated slave, not just a slave. Like in Team Jakaria had done to those 2 princes who were serving him like lapdogs. But there's also that encounter between Anokye and the Imam. Would you like to briefly tell us something before we go?
Okay, so Anokye and Osei Tutu, Mana Kotoshi sent her son to go and find out what the gods wanted, to seek the face of the gods, because there was a lot of trouble brewing after he had met with the emissaries from Akwemu. And as it was detected, or it was foretold that there's trouble at home, it's not safe for Osei Tutu to go back to the house. So they had to take a different route. So they decided that they were going to Akwemu. Since the emissaries were from Kwemu, they thought they had friends there, and they decided to pass the night in the inn.
Right.
They needed horses. So they were asked, there was a battle that had to take place over there. So Anokye encountered this imam, and there was a riddle, there was a question. He asked why he had been brought to that place, and Anokye was able to tell him, and they got the horses and everything.
And they found their way through.
Yes.
Again, through Komi's favorite, magic. In case you just joined us, we're reviewing The Usurper's Dream, a weaving of the first gods. That is book one of this wonderful piece by Yeayi Kobina, right here on the Joy Book Club. We're taking a breather. We'll be right back. Welcome back on the Joy Book Club. My name is Benjamin Akakpo. I love books, and we're bringing this book to life, The Usurper's Dream by Yeayi Kobina. It's the first in an installment of about 5. But coming back from the break, I'm going to be giving you my word in action for today, and it is reverberate. Reverberate. It's used in the continuous form in this book, reverberating. So how do you spell reverberate? R-E-V-E R-B-E-R-A-T-E. R-E-V-E. R-B-E-R-A-T-E. Reverberate. It is, of course, a verb. Now, if you say something reverberates, what does it mean? Oh, yeah, I'm going to tell you. Yes, so if a loud, deep sound reverberates, it continues to be heard around an area so that the area seems to shake. So imagine an earthquake. That'll give some reverberation. You could also use it as reverberate with or to. So an example would be the narrow street reverberated with the sound of the workmen's drills. Brrr, and you hear that reverberating sound. You can also use it figuratively. If an event or idea reverberates somewhere, it has an effect on everyone or everything in a place or group. For example, you could say, around news, so reverberate around news of the disaster reverberated around the organization. So you could say news of the disaster reverberated around the organization. So news went round and people were hearing it. Or you could say the surge in US share prices reverberated across the globe. And that is our word in action. But how is it used in today's book? Page 8, prologue. She could hear the reverberating sounds of incantations and prayers of her fellow sisters who were gathered outside the birthing hut. She could hear the reverberating sounds of incantations and prayers of her fellow sisters who were gathered outside the birthing hut. And that's the word. If you didn't know it, now you know. And if you knew it already, here's a reminder, reverberate. But let's get to the rest of the discussion. Komi and Marjorie are still in here. I like to call her MJ. Should I tell them the other one?
No.
All right, so we've got to a very interesting portion in the book. When you turn to pages 102 and 103, there's more happening there. Nana Sasaraku comes in. General Kokobo, I laughed at his name and the incantations. And what about you? Heard of these Obronis? Nana Sasaku asked. What was happening here? Komi, starting with you.
I think that, those are the first people who came, first white-skinned people who came to the shores of the country, of the state at the time, and they thought that, because they were different, so the description is what we're seeing there.
Okay, and is there anything else you'd like to add? Because from here, there are some, how would I put it, major things that also, there's a sequel of events.
Yes, so I think that this is the part of in this part of the book, we are introduced, I beg your pardon, to the arrival of the white man to the shores of Africa.
Exactly.
And how they were impacting the trading in the southern parts where they first arrived at. Let me just put it that way. So,
and of course, I say it's important because we know that once the whites arrive, there are certain things that will also begin to happen, which will later culminate in colonialism, everything in between. But let's talk about the character Brackle. Pages 113 and 114 highlight his character. What exactly is he doing? What role does he play from here?
Braku is a very interesting character, right? From a low life to a wealthy person who has got his money out of selling secret to people. Very cunning man, wicked to his wife, had a lot of wives, wicked to all of them.
On page 114, he says, people paid for their secrets to be kept. Others paid to know the secrets of others. It was just a matter of positioning himself at the center of it. Can you imagine that?
Yeah. And he learned this from childhood because he found two people, his friend's father, in bed with another man's wife or something of the sort. And he saw the attention that was given to him because in his home, he had no such attention, even though he was the 14th child. But these people were actually giving him attention because they wanted to keep the secret. So he learned it from there that, okay, so then I can actually get more favors and attention just by getting people's secrets. So he positioned himself in places where he could actually get to know what someone's secret is so that he can blackmail them. And that's how he got up the social ladder.
Imagine rising by selling other people's secrets or knowing this and connecting the dots and letting the other person know. But that's exactly what Braku did.
Yeah.
What more do we know about Braku?
One thing we don't know about Braku is the fact that he's someone who abuses his wives. Okay, that's the main reason why his main enemies were his own wives. And at the end of the day, they got him. They sold him out to other people.
He treated his wives like they were in boarding school.
Like cattle.
Yeah, he can actually punish them by asking them to kneel down.
Yeah.
That was very wicked. And we also learned that for, I think, two of his wives, Danswa and Oforiwa, he actually slept with them once, and that was it. He never touched them again.
And I wonder why. Is it because he doesn't like them, or it doesn't get up any longer?
I mean, there are so many things in there, but then the other question you would ask is with Fidelity and others, in there, how they coped. We are not told exactly how all of them did that, but you would ask yourself how they did, and whether in this instance it would have been infidelity. In some religious practices and some other customs, if you've not been with a person, you've not had a union for a certain length of time, it almost begins to appear that you are no longer in that marital unit. But then the story proceeds. There is the jailing. There is Anokye. In some precarious situations, there was the issue with the imam, but now it goes fast forward. There are other sticky situations he gets into. Let's get into that before we get into Intim Jakari and what progressively he's going to do. Remember that he had pledged that he would destroy those two and
kingdoms.
Yes.
Yeah. So, of course, the jailing first, and Braku was sent to jail, right? And because of what happened, he was sold out by his own wives, was sent to jail. But somehow, the oracle, the Kumfu, Anokye, and Nyamiche, they come to rescue him. And I wonder why, because of the description that was given, how he's portrayed in the book. I think he's not a good person, but they came to release him. I think that he has a role to play.
Why do you think they came to rescue him? Because he has a role to play.
I think he has a role to play in this, birth of a big kingdom. I think that there's something that he's going to do at the end of the day to ensure that that kingdom is born. That's why I think they saw that, right? Because they are, I don't say magicians, but they are prophets.
Yeah, because they said that right from the beginning, 4 destinies were intertwined. So, and it's such an intricate web that Kweku Anansi was denied entry back into the kingdom where his father Nyame is. So, till he's able to weave that story. So he has to follow through. So we'll find out.
Let's talk about, I started talking about Intim Jakari. Let's talk about Denchra and what per the oracle is going to happen with all these happenings with Anokye in the mix and the princes as well. Will there be a rebellion, and will Intim Jakari be able to hold his own?
That's the question. Denchra is that superpower, so to speak. Very powerful state. They have the
subdued.
They have the military. They have all the nuclear weapons, so to speak. They have all the powers. And the king is ruthless. The king in Intim Jakari is ruthless, right? He doesn't care about who you are. Can you imagine? He cut off the tongue of the servants. They can't talk, right? And castrated people. A lot of people in jail and all that. So it is a king that has been feared by other kingdoms, and they've been disturbing the other kingdoms, and the others are tired. And you can see, when people are tired of oppression, when they've done everything that is possible, but they don't get their freedom, the only thing they do is to revolt. And I think that's what we're seeing here. These kingdoms are getting tired, and they are beginning to revolt.
And we see part of that on page 177. Let's quickly get there. The sun was sinking over the horizon when Mana Kotosi's eyes took in Denchira for the first time. Denchira was a land designed as a mass display of wealth and power. Every structure was well thought out. Like a wealthy man inviting guests over, its best foot was the only thing visible to prying eyes. Mana Kotosi was overwhelmed as she was led to its capital, Abenkeseso. The palace of Intim Jakare did not do much to lessen her awe. Its size dwarfed the Kwaman Palace or any that Mana Kotosi had ever seen. It was situated on a hill with huts beginning at the very bottom to the very top of it. But with Mana Kotosi coming into the picture here, she sees Denchira. But is she afraid of Denchira? And what will her role be from here?
And that's why she's my favorite character, because she doesn't fear anything, right? She's very confident. She doesn't even fear death itself, right? And she's willing to go the extra mile, go whatever she can go to get what she wants. That's the mother of Osei, of course, and they've been taken captive back into the kingdom of Intim because they didn't find the main person. Osei Tutu is going to look for power to come and overpower them. So, yeah, she went there. She's not scared of anybody. She's not scared even of the king. You could read that from the conversation between the two of them, knowing that she's got plan, right? She's got plan to ensure that, something happens. And that happened at the end of the day. Yeah. The slave, her own slave, Breman, very interesting character, your main character.
I was about to get to that. Breman's role in all of it. Maybe we should cede to Marjorie to talk about what happens from there.
Okay, so we know that Mana Kotosi, she's very manipulative and everything. So she sets spies on her brother because I think they've had this distrust between them since childhood.
Forever.
And Breman happens to be one of the slave girls she brought into the palace and planted by her brother, unknown to him, so that she can be feeding her, Mana Kotosi, with information. And we see how fate is turned over and she becomes more like at Breman's mercy, because when they were captured to Denchira, she was bound, her hands were bound, and Breman, the slave, is now the one holding onto her rope and has to help her along the way. But then we learn that there was an interaction with some supreme being in the form of a mad person who predicts that Breman is going to be the downfall of the wicked king. And so Mana Kotosi is supposed to help her to see everything come out to light.
So the tides will merge. I see you have something.
Yeah, I want to say about Breman. There's something you have to know about Breman. She's that person that when you set your eye on her, you cannot stop, right? You can't afford to get closer.
Like General Kokobo was down flat, like the moment.
Flies to vinegar or bees to something sweet.
I don't know what it is about her, but I think she's very beautiful. Yeah. I don't know what the shape is, but what you see her is like,
They say beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. So whatever is beauty for you is what
men fell for her, so I'm sure that she's universally
I think
beautiful.
She paid attention to herself because the way the author describes her and how she even has that mark for royals on her ankle, hiding it with the bead and the beads around her waist and everything. You can see she really takes, and she's intentional. When she met with General Kokobo came into the palace, you can see how she you see
the sway of her body and everything.
They said she was not in a haste.
Yeah.
What so nebo, and she got what she wanted.
She meant to slay. Yeah. If you allowed yourself, she would slay you.
Yes, and Mana Kotosi actually noticed that no, she made a mistake from the beginning. She could have probably kept her closer to her than to give her to the brother. Yeah.
So let's do this. How does the book end? Time is not our best friend, but how does the book end? Let's fast forward. We are almost at the end anyway. How does this first book end in some 30 seconds each? And then I'll take lessons.
Yeah, so the book ends this way. There was a war, and at the end of that war, I think the king, Yeayi was killed.
Yeayi.
Unfortunately, he died in that war. And also, what we need to know is at the end of the day, King Jakari killed his own mother and made Bremen
in Team Jakari
the queen. The queen. So things are beginning to happen, right?
So Bremen's wish is fulfilled.
It's beginning to happen.
Yeah.
So with Berber, you can just say dare to dream. Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, because
even if you cut corners.
because she was a dreamer. Like she didn't give up on herself.
So what lessons would you take away from a book like this? Don't tell me that you need to spy on others and sell them.
I can say that. I think my lesson is found on page 17. That I just want to read that quickly. Just one sentence.
Very quickly on that.
That there is never victory in a war. Even conquerors count their losses. So this is what we should know, that there's no victory in a war. As those who want to choose war, they should think twice, because even if you're that strong, powerful, you will still count your losses. So there's no loser, there's no winner in a war. Everybody is a loser. So
it reminds me of that saying, Pyrrhic victory, where you may win, but the losses would be so bad that your win would not be a win. Marjorie, very quickly.
Okay, so Mana Kotosi said something to Bremen that really struck me, and she said the bounds of slavery are not always visible. And I look at
the bonds of slavery are not always visible.
Always visible, because she was desiring to be free, but then and she wanted to be free from all the men that were oppressing her and everything. She thought that if she had a husband and kids, that actually meant freedom. And she made that statement that the bonds of slavery are not always visible. And if we look at our social context, we see how we claim we are free Ghanaians. We just celebrated our independence day, but then are we really free? We might as well.
Are you asking me? You have not answered that question. No. Answer for yourself. Or you answer for yourself.
Question to the
you all answer for ourselves. Are you free? You can ask yourself that question. This has been our review of The Usurper's Dream. But before we go, like I always do, I'll give you my reading quote and others. So my reading quote for you today is this. It comes from Leonard Dunham, who says, let's be reasonable and add an 8th day of the week, or add an 8th day to the week that is devoted exclusively to reading. I love this quote. Let's be reasonable and add an 8th day to the week that is devoted exclusively to reading. So how often do you read? Hopefully you'll be grabbing this book and getting a read. Our figure of speech for today is metonymy. Metonymy, it's spelled METONYMY. I don't give you all the details, but you can read more about it. Now, this is the representation of something or somebody with an object associated or related to them. So instead of mentioning the person, you make a relation. For example, the pulpit should be careful. Now, the pulpit here refers to clergymen, pastors, and all of that. Another example is, the change of throne is not an easy task. The change of throne is not an easy task. Where throne here represents, you guessed it, kingship or queenship. And so that is my figure of speech for you today. But the poem I have selected comes from Voices in My Head, Kojobafo, and it's from pages 23 and 24. The title is Divine Utterings. In a past life, they called me God. Now I walk with the masses and hide my true divinity for the sake of your sanity and my vanity. Today I am guided by heart and metaphor and simile, simply focused on the simplicity of easy living. Preach elevated divinity, but know that the one true God resides in me and him and her and we. In a past life, I was Lord over land and sea. Now I am a mass of the ordinary living in the remains of my toil, one of the many mighty fallen, died to be reborn, to die once more. Today I wrestle with destiny, haunted by recurring dreams of harmony. Karma is no laughing matter, but at times I find myself laughing hysterically. In a past life, I was king, conqueror, emperor. Now all I seem to do is dream of my former glory, content to wallow in anonymity, free from responsibility, responsible only for my freedom to live. In a past life, I was all of the above, and I was me. Today, I continue to be only me. Simply. And that is, of course, like I said, from Kojo Bafo's book, and the title of the poem, Divine Utterings. Thank you for joining us to review The Usurper's Dream. Marjorie, Komi, thank you so much. I'm giving you air handshakes. Air handshakes. Thank you for joining. We'll look forward to the next installment on the Joy Book Club. My name is Benjamin Akakpo, and to you, thank you for watching.